The words didn't come wrapped in kindness. They never did when it came to me. "Don't come tonight," my mother said over the phone, her voice distracted, like she was already looking past me. "It's New Year's Eve. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable." I waited for her to laugh. To say she was joking. To soften it somehow. She didn't. Behind her voice, I could hear everything I wasn't part of: music playing too loud, glasses clinking, my sister's laugh ringing out like she belonged there more than I ever did. Someone was counting bottles. Someone was happy. And I wasn't invited. "Okay," I said, because that's what I'd learned to say over the years. Okay when I was ignored. Okay when I was forgotten. Okay when loving me felt like too much effort. The call ended before I could say anything else. Not even Happy New Year. I stood in the middle of my apartment holding my phone, staring at the blank screen. The silence felt heavier than shouting ever could. My place was small, cheap furniture, neutral walls, nothing I hadn't chosen for myself. No photos of family. No framed memories. Just proof that I existed quietly. I tried to stay busy. I cleaned the kitchen that was already clean. I folded clothes I had washed earlier, stacking them neatly like order could fix the mess inside my chest. I heated leftover food and ate standing up, because sitting down felt too lonely. Outside, the city was alive. Fireworks cracked in the distance, premature celebrations from people who couldn't wait for the year to turn. Every sound felt like a reminder that I was somewhere I wasn't meant to be, alone. This wasn't the first time my family had excluded me. Just the clearest. There had been birthdays where I was too busy. Holidays where my presence was optional. Family photos where I was asked to take the picture instead of being in it. Somewhere along the way, I became the extra piece. The one who didn't fit their image of happiness. At 11:58 p.m., I sat on the floor with my back against the couch. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't want to watch strangers kiss and count down together. I placed my phone face down beside me, afraid that if I stared at it too long, I'd hope for a message that wasn't coming. When the clock hit 11:59, I whispered the countdown alone. 5. 4. 3. My voice cracked on 2. At midnight, the world outside exploded. Cheers echoed through the walls. Fireworks lit up the sky beyond my window. Somewhere, my family was hugging each other, laughing, celebrating the future, without me. I pressed my forehead to my knees and whispered, "Happy New Year," to no one. Then, 1 minute later, my phone rang. The screen lit up with my brother's name. My heart sank before I even answered. When I picked up, his voice was shaking, breathless, terrified. "What did you do?" he asked. "Dad just saw the news, and he's not breathing right." And suddenly, the quiet night I thought would break me was only just beginning. People assume abandonment happens in one loud moment: an argument, a door slammed, someone walking away. For me, it was quieter than that. It was a lifetime of being overlooked so gently that no one else ever noticed. I grew up in a house where love had conditions. My sister was the golden child, effortless and adored. My brother was the heir, loud and protected. And I was the one who learned to stay small so I wouldn't be in the way. If I spoke too much, I was dramatic. If I stayed quiet, I was cold. If I needed help, I was a burden. So I stopped needing. I learned early that praise was rare and approval even rarer. When I brought home good grades, my mother would nod and ask if my sister had eaten yet. When I won a small scholarship, my father reminded me not to get too proud. But when my siblings failed, the house stopped spinning until they felt better. I remember standing in doorways, waiting for someone to notice me. Waiting for my name to be called the way theirs always was. It never came. By the time I left for college, I had already learned the most important lesson of my life: if I wanted something, I would have to build it myself. I worked while I studied. Late nights. Early mornings. I watched other students call home for comfort while I learned to self-soothe in library corners and empty cafeterias. My family never asked how I was managing. They just assumed I was fine because I didn't complain. And I didn't tell them when I wasn't. When I moved into my first apartment, they didn't come see it. When I changed jobs, they forgot the company name. When I started my business, I mentioned it once at a family dinner and my brother laughed, asking if it was a cute little side thing. I never brought it up again. Something in me closed that night. Not in anger, but in understanding. I finally accepted that my dreams made them uncomfortable. My ambition didn't fit their story of me. So I let them keep the version they preferred, the struggling daughter, the forgettable sister, the one who never quite made it. While they celebrated each other, I stayed invisible and worked. I failed quietly. I succeeded silently. There were nights I cried from exhaustion, mornings I woke up terrified of losing everything, moments when I wished, just once, that someone from my family would ask, "How are you really doing?" They never did. And so, when the company began to grow, when investors showed interest, when the numbers stopped being small, when my name started appearing in rooms I had never been allowed into, I didn't tell them. Not out of spite. Out of self-preservation. Because I knew this truth better than anyone. They didn't love the journey. They only loved the finish line. And I refused to let them claim a victory they never helped me survive. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I sat there on my apartment floor, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my brother's uneven breathing. The fireworks outside had started to fade, leaving behind a strange quiet, like the city itself was holding its breath. "What news?" I asked finally, even though a part of me already knew. He swallowed hard. I could hear chaos behind him, voices overlapping, my mother crying, someone knocking something over. "Your name," he said. "It's on the TV. On the phone. Everywhere." Dad turned on the news after midnight and his voice broke. He thought it was a mistake. I closed my eyes. At exactly midnight, the embargo had lifted. Months of silence, legal agreements, and careful planning ended in a single second. The acquisition was public. The headlines were already spreading across screens. Young female founder leads one of the year's biggest deals. My face. My name. My story, told without the parts where I was invisible. I hadn't planned it as revenge. I had planned it as survival. "I didn't do anything," I said quietly. "I just worked." He didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Dad can't breathe properly. He keeps asking if it's really you. He doesn't understand how this happened without us knowing. Without them knowing." That was the part that hurt him most. I pictured my father staring at the screen, the weight of realization settling in all at once. The daughter he dismissed. The one he told not to dream too loudly. The one they said made people uncomfortable. Now unavoidable. Now undeniable. "Put Mom on," I said. He hesitated. Then the phone shifted, and my mother's voice came through, broken and frantic. "Why didn't you tell us?" she cried. "We would have supported you." The words felt unreal. Support. From the same woman who told me not to come to New Year's Eve. "You never asked," I replied. Silence followed. The kind that lands hard because it's true. In the background, my father was coughing, gasping, demanding answers no one could give him. Not because he was dying, but because his image of the world was. "Please," my brother said again, returning to the line. "Can you come here? He wants to see you. We need you." Need. That word had never been used for me before. I stood up slowly and looked around my apartment, the quiet space they thought was beneath them. The place I had built when no one else showed up. "I was told not to come," I said. My voice didn't shake. "You said I'd make everyone uncomfortable." He didn't deny it. "I'll call later," I added gently. And I meant it. But not tonight. I ended the call and sat back down, heart pounding, not from fear, but from clarity. For the first time in my life, they were the ones scrambling. And I was finally still. I didn't go to them that night. That choice was the first real boundary I had ever drawn, and the most powerful. I let the phone buzz until it went silent. I let the panic stay on their side of the door for once. For years, I had carried the weight of their indifference. I wasn't going to carry their shock too. Morning arrived gently, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Sunlight slipped through my curtains. My apartment looked the same, quiet, modest, mine. But something inside me had shifted. My phone was full of messages. Missed calls from my brother. Voice notes from my mother, crying so hard I could barely understand her words. Texts from relatives who had never once checked on me but suddenly remembered my name. "We're so proud of you. We always believed in you." I didn't respond. 2 days later, I agreed to meet them. Not because they demanded it, but because I chose to. We met in a small cafe, neutral ground. No childhood walls. No old power. My father looked smaller than I remembered. Older. His hand shook slightly as he held his cup. When he saw me, he stood halfway, unsure whether to hug me or not. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "Not I'm sorry. Not I failed you. Just I didn't know." "I know," I replied. And for the first time, those words didn't hurt. My mother cried, the same way she always had when consequences arrived. "We never meant to make you feel left out," she said. "You should have told us you were struggling." I met her eyes. "I did. Just not with words. You just never listened." My brother stared at the table, shame etched into his face. He finally whispered, "We thought you were fine." I smiled softly. I was. I learned how to be. The conversation didn't end in shouting. It didn't end in forgiveness either. It ended in understanding, on my terms. They wanted to be part of my life now. To attend events. To meet people who used my name with respect. To stand beside me in the light. I didn't say no. I just didn't say yes right away. Because revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to burn bridges or raise voices. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is letting people feel the distance they created. I didn't become cold. I became selective. I returned to my life, the meetings, the plans, the future I had built in silence. And for the first time, I felt no urge to prove anything to anyone. That New Year's Eve, they thought excluding me meant I was nothing. But at 12:01 a.m., the truth arrived without my help. I was never the uncomfortable one. I was the one who outgrew them. And as the year began, I realized something beautiful. I didn't lose a family that night. I found myself.